ClickStar. And the first question I'm just going to ask you is to just say your name and just a sentence describing what you do.
For sure. My name is Commissioner Desmond Duncan Walker. I am a commissioner for the City of Gainesville, District 1, and I have the pleasure and honor and privilege of making policy for the citizens, not just in my district, but individuals throughout the city.
So, as commissioner, a lot of the issues that your constituents care about is the environment. What role do you see as commissioner in making policy targeting that?
Well, I mean, it's huge. It's vast. I think a lot of my constituents come with a myriad issues. You know, when you're talking about the environment, and they range from everything around issues as to how development impacts the environment to how the environment should be protected in terms of our water. And so it's really a gamut. And I get a chance to listen to a lot of those concerns. I get a chance to respond in a lot of commission meetings when our neighbors come forward and share with us their heartfelt ideas about how what we are doing is impacting them either negatively or positively, or they come to us and they give us insight about what they feel like should happen. There are a number of organizations that come into the chamber frequently, but there are also a number of individuals who will take the time out of their busy schedules and hectic lives to come and voice their opinions about the environment, because we know how critical it is and how important it is for us to be good stewards of that, because that is probably one of the major things that is an equalizer for us all. We all live in the earth and the environment, and it impacts us all.
Is protecting Florida green spaces and the environment what makes you passionate about
Well, because, like I just said, that is one thing that all of us need access to in a healthy and safe way. You know, what happens with the environment is what determines our quality of life. So when something comes before me, I know that I always am mindful, first of all, to educate myself. Because to be very clear and very honest, the environment is not something that I'm an expert on. As I have uh, seen more days here at the commission, I have found myself educating myself more and being educated a lot by my constituents. And it has been very interesting, very exciting. But I will be honest with you, it's also been a little scary, because there are a number of issues, as you know, that we're facing right now that are very critical. If we do not have quick, timely responses to, we can do irreparable damage to the earth and the environment. And those are the things that I like to try to make sure that I am being responsible in my decision making processes regarding.
that? As a commissioner, you're in a unique position in that most people, when we think about issues that we have and that we want to change, we think about our access to the policy making process. You are directly connected to that process.
Mhm.
Speaking as both a person and a commissioner, what how empowering has that felt to you, and how and what sense of empowerment are you trying to convey to your constituents?
Say it again. How empowering has what been? I'm
How
sorry.
has been involved? How has being involved directly in the policymaking
Mm.
process been empowering to you? And how are you trying to share that sense of empowerment with the people you represent?
For sure. Well, to be very honest, me coming into this position has always been about the people. I ran from this for a very long time. I have had people in my life who are very close to me, and some people that were on the periphery of my life who have told me for quite some time since I was a teenager that politics was something that I should get into. As a matter of fact, when I began my college studies at Bethune Cookman College, it was then, but now it's Bethune Cookman University, my major was political science. It quickly changed to speech communications, just because that was something that I also loved. But I say that to say, when I entered into this space, I did so out of a love of community, out of a love for people, and wanting to be a part of the empowerment process for them. So that's really where my work starts and where it ends. It always starts with the ability to empower the people. I hope that my presence here is doing that in a lot of ways, because I feel like my ability to not just listen and hear, but my ability to actually actualize what they're asking for is something that I've been proud to say that I've been able to do at least a bit of. I really am more interested about empowering the people. I don't know. I do feel obviously empowered because there is a level of power and authority that I do have here at the commission. Part of my job requires that in the process, when I'm on the dais speaking with my colleagues, that I speak clearly, that I speak from a position of knowledge, having educated myself in the topics. But then when it comes time to vote, if I have put a thing forward, I've got to bring three other commissioners with me in agreement so that that thing can get passed. I've been very fortunate in my time here that most of the things that I have put forward have gotten those yays that have been required to move forward.
Well, as a commissioner and as an elected official as a whole, I think a lot of times people sometimes feel disparaged in saying that as much as people are told that, there is a direct connection to your elected representative, some people don't always feel like that connection exists.
For sure.
To people that feel that way, as someone who is in this unique position, what sort of reassurance can you provide to them?
I can provide the reassurance of simply doing my job, which is to be here, simply leading by example, showing you that when I say that I will be here, when I say that I will respond, I will do that. And there are other commissioners that do that as well. I certainly can't speak for anyone else, but I think that, for people, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. So when you show individuals that you will be responsive to their requests and their needs, that helps to give them a sense of reassurance. It helps to, in a lot of ways, provide a level of trust that oftentimes is missing when you talk about anything political. Unfortunately, the word or the title politician doesn't always get the best response when one says that. But it is my hope that as a commissioner, when people hear my name, that a level of trust and regard accompanies that, because I do my best to be responsive. I think that's the thing. You have to respond and you have to listen with the intentions of moving whatever it is that your constituents say forward in some way. A lot of people um, a want to be heard, but they also understand the importance of you then taking what they've said and actually trying to do something with it. So I like to try to marry those two things and move the concerns of my constituents forward when I can.
Well, when it comes to environmental issues, what's the best way for your constituents and constituents in general to reach out to their representatives and express their opinions and their goals for the future?
Well, I think there are a number of ways that they can reach out. You can certainly reach out by phone all of the time. Picking up the phone and calling the city commission is a surefire way that you will be able to reach someone here. I'm a person that I always do try to respond to my phone calls. I love to meet, as you can tell. So after you have called or after you have emailed, I like face-to-face meetings. I do Zoom meetings, but I believe that for me, that is a very good way for me to hear from my constituents. I like that face-to-face contact because I think that there is no replacement for being able to put a face to a concern, but also being able to exchange the energy. When I can see you and you can see me, there is very little room for error in understanding how we both feel about a thing. So meeting is something that I consider very, very important. But phone calls, emails, face-to-face meetings, virtual meetings as well are all effective ways of getting information and receiving information from the commission.
You touched on this a little bit earlier, and you spoke about how protecting our wildlife and protecting our environment is something that affects all of us. We all live on this earth. And I agree with you in saying that environmental issues are people issues, right?
Mhm.
What does that mean to you to say that protecting our environment is a people issue?
It's a people issue because you get one earth, I believe, and I believe that people are in a unique position in that we are the stewards of the earth. I believe that we are in many, many ways in control of the earth. And so as a result, we have to be responsible. We are responsible for the wildlife, the trees, the animals that inhabit and share this earth with us. And so, whenever we can, we need to be mindful. We need to do things that will keep the environment safe, keep it livable. Yeah, that's what I believe that means.
Here in the state of Florida, obviously we suffer from things such as hurricanes
Mm.
and very hot summers. For everyday people who are affected by these issues, what's your message to them as someone involved in government?
I would say that I know here at the commission, we have had several conversations about the work that continues to be done in helping to address extreme heat. Hurricanes are nothing that we can control, but there are things and policies that we can put in place to try to make buildings more resilient. There are things that we can do in terms of making safe spaces more readily available for those who will need to shelter. So, my conversation or my statement to individuals would be that if there is something that you see that we are missing, please don't fail, don't hesitate to reach out to us to let us know what the community's needs are. It's one thing for us sitting at the dais to think we have the answers, but it's something else to hear from the individuals in the community about what their needs are as well. So I would say, please reach out to us. Let us know if there's something that you see that either we're doing right, you seem to not have a problem letting us know when we're doing it wrong, but and that is all absolutely valuable as well. But when you see something that we need to address, please do not hesitate to come to the commission. That is the job that we are here to do. We are public servants. Give us the opportunity to serve you. We won't be able to do that if you simply sit on the issues in silence.
Well, for the people that are most affected by, like we discussed, hurricanes and extreme weather, how can we best help them?
Well, we can best help them by doing a couple of things, I believe. I believe that we have to go where they are. There are many situations where the most vulnerable are simply unable to access city government, whether it is that transportation is a problem, getting to city commission meetings, whether it is that access to phones or ways to view city commission meetings just are not readily available. But we need to make sure that we are going into these vulnerable communities, that we are talking to the people there, and that we are listening to them in terms of what the actual needs are there. Um, I'm a firm believer in that level of engagement. There's nothing that beats that. I don't believe that you sit back and you wait on that. I think that the time to address our most vulnerable populations is right now. And that we ought always be trying to find ways to make sure that their voices are included in the conversation about how we address disasters, how we address heat, how we address climate. We certainly cannot leave them out of the conversation.
Well, in regards to your work working with the environment, as a commissioner, what kind of impact do you hope that your work has, say, 15 years down the line?
I hope that 15 years down the line, we will see some of the issues improve, if not resolve. I'd like to be very, very hopeful, but understanding exactly the dire straits that we're in, I will settle for hoping for improvement, but sustained improvement over time so that possibly in the next few years, beyond that 15 years, we'll actually see some things resolve. But yeah, I'm going to hold out hope that the messaging about the need to be mindful of the environment, the messaging about the need to be good stewards and caretakers of the environment is something that will continue to push forward. That the education about the environment is something that will continue to reach children so that they understand the need to be mindful, to be responsible, and they too will want to care for nature and the environment. I'm hoping all of those things will trickle down over the next 15 years and the years that follow that. And as a result, we'll see a sustained, improved impact.
Has there been a moment, um, as you serving as city commissioner, where you've had a conversation with one of your constituents, or just a moment where you felt even more passionate about protecting our environment. Have you had like a conversation like that?
I've had several. I've had several, and probably um, the most impactful conversations that I've had have all been after disasters. And that's almost unfortunate to say, but I think those disasters have simply given us a new lens to look at what the real concerns are, and kind of remind us that we cannot tarry, that we have to remain vigilant about how we respond, how we are reinforcing infrastructure, how we are just thinking into the future about protecting the environment, about community resilience. Because ultimately, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the resilience of nature, the resilience of people.
Has there been a piece of advice that you were maybe given growing up, or it's something, when you first came into the job that really stuck with you?
Well, I can say this. As I was growing up, I remember breakfasts on Saturday mornings in parks throughout the city with my grandmother. And so early on in my life, I developed a real appreciation for nature and the environment around me. I remember that on down to what we were eating, it usually was something, ironically, that tied into where we were. It may have been a deviled egg that looked a certain way. It may have been a sandwich that was cut into the shape of a bunny. It may, but I remember breakfast in Morningside Nature Park because it was very close to where my grandparents lived. And like I said, other parks. But I know that my grandmother taught me very, very early on to simply appreciate nature and the beauty that's around me. She taught me to be responsible for it. My grandfather came from a farming family. And so his family was used to working with their hands. And I sat at his feet and I listened to him for years into my adolescence and into my adult life as he taught me the importance of being able to eat from a ground that was not polluted, being able to drink from wells and swim in ponds that didn't have chemicals. The foods that they grew were not sprayed with pesticides. And so I believe that I now have the privilege of looking at a 99-year-old grandfather as a result of that. He just turned 99 about 2 weeks ago. I've had the blessing of some very real world and tangible people in my life who taught me the value of nature and protecting it and being good stewards of it. To say that there was one thing in particular that they said, there were 1,000 things that they said. There were even more things that they did to demonstrate the importance of being a good steward and protecting the environment. So I'm just blessed to have lived the importance of being a good steward.
Well, after living through all of that great advice, looking back, is there a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
For sure. Be in tune and be one with nature. It is probably the most beautiful thing that there is. We're all linked. I do believe we're all directly tied into nature. And I think that if I had to give myself any piece of advice, it would be in tune and in alignment with things that I've been saying throughout this conversation. And that is to be a good steward. You cannot neglect or be a part of damaging the environment and expect to have a healthy, safe, or prosperous life. You just can't. So be a good steward. Take care of the earth, and the earth will take care of you.
One of the questions I like to ask people to kind of pick their brain a little bit about the kind of work that they do and their personality
Mhm.
is, if you could describe your work in a metaphor, your work with protecting the environment, your care for the environment, what would that be?
Interesting. It would probably be summed up in a phrase that I heard my great grandmother say many, many years ago, that I've heard my parents say. Um, Never forget the bridge that brought you over. So, in my work, because I have been so blessed and fortunate to be supported by a lot of people, you don't forget the bridge that brought you over. That bridge is the people, but that bridge is also a healthy, safe environment. And I've had the benefit of growing up around individuals, as I shared with you, who encouraged and showed me how to be a participant in keeping the environment safe, making the environment safe, making things grow. So, not forgetting the bridge that brought me over to me means you don't forget the people, but you also don't forget the earth that has nurtured and supported me just as much as the people that have.
Well, I want to speak specifically to young people, right? Young
Mm.
people who the consequences of extreme heat and the consequences of our environment getting worse, they're the ones who are going to be most directly affected down the line. For people who feel passionate about these issues and passionate about wanting to see change, what's your advice to them? What should they do?
I would say do not be afraid. And for those who are already doing it, do not stop reaching out to the individuals who are in local government, who are in state government, and at the federal level as well. But I would say do not stop. Do not stop with your activism. Do not stop galvanizing around the issues that are intended to preserve and sustain the environment. Don't stop, because the change happens at the policy level. That really is the requirement, making sure that the necessary laws, rules, regulations, ordinances, guidelines are in place to save the environment is absolutely crucial. Making sure that the necessary resources are in place to do that is absolutely crucial. And you cannot do those things in the absence of politics and politicians right now. So please, please stay in the faces of local government leaders, statewide and at the federal level as well, with the intent of helping to shift policy.
I think for a lot of people, sometimes there could be a lack of hope. There can be people who feel very discouraged, and I would like to say you're not one of them. I'd like to say that in the face of a lot of things, you come off as very hopeful and very optimistic. What gives you that hope?
You can't not have it, because to not have hope is to give up entirely. You spoke or asked me a question just a few moments ago about young people. Well, if there's anything that gives me hope, it's young folk. It's the reason that we can't stop fighting. It's a reason why we must be resilient in this hour, because there are generations who are depending on us to get this right. And what they will inherit from us, the earth that they will inherit from us, it will either be a healthy earth that they will be able to glean goodness out of, or it will be a damaged earth. I don't want to leave them the damaged earth. So the young people give me hope. Their advocacy, their activism gives me hope as well. Because when I see the young folk who have picked up the mantle of having these conversations around the globe, I'm just, I'm enamored, I'm thrilled, I'm hopeful, because I know that they understand. I know they understand the value of being good stewards. I know that they understand the value of their voices. So the young folk definitely give me hope.
Is there a particular project you're working on now here in Gainesville, in District One, that you're excited about, or anything you want to talk about in that realm?
Absolutely. We're working on an upcoming summit, if you will, that is going to bring together faith leaders in District 1. I'm so, so excited about working on that, because the faith leaders have not just influence throughout the community, but they have these ready made groups of individuals that they have the opportunity to share with, to educate, to empower and inspire. And so, coming up in the next couple of months here, there will be a meeting at one of the historic churches here in Gainesville that happens to be my church, a church where my family has gone for generations. I'm very, very excited about that.
For me, coming into a lot of environmental activism, I never really used to think about the intersections between faith and wanting to protect the environment, and faith and protecting our wildlife. And that was something that was new to me. But for a lot of people, it isn't. And for a lot of people, that's a bridge that does exist. What do those things combined mean to you?
Well, I would say, if I were more of a biblical scholar, I could give you the scripture that does speak to what it means to be responsible for the earth. Um, I wish I literally could quote some right now for you, but I can definitely point you to the fact that there is some. And I would say that the intersection is a powerful one. And it's why the members of the faith community absolutely must be called into this conversation. Because if you believe in certain principles, let's use Christianity for an example, because that is how I was raised. There were scriptures that we were taught that led us to the idea that good stewardship and good responsibility, taking care of the earth, all of those were things that were in the Bible. So this is simply us walking in what we've been taught biblically. It makes sense to pull this group of people in because, in a lot of ways, there are intersections, regardless of faith, between that faith and the environment.
In terms of people listening to this interview and this discussion, if you could give them a call to action,
Mm.
whether it be people here in Gainesville, or people even outside of the city, what's your call to action for the people that may feel powerless sometimes?
Mm. Mm. I would say, do not feel that you have no power. Your voice, your witness is your power. What you are seeing, what you are experiencing is not an illusion. It is very real. Do not take it for granted. Observe. But then, after you observe what's happening, let those observations lead you to community meetings. Let them lead you into conversations with other individuals who share these same sentiments that you do to protect your environment. Let those conversations lead you to commission meetings where you will encounter commissioners like myself who also care, who are concerned, who can be a part of the policy-making process that will move us closer to saving and creating a much more sustainable earth. I would say, do not feel powerless, because you actually are the power.
Well, before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to mention, or anything that maybe you haven't gotten the chance to speak about?
I think we've covered a lot. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to talk to you and to share my ideas and my sentiments. If you would have asked me 6 years ago if this would have been the conversation that I would have been having, I probably would have told you no. And it would not have been because I didn't care about the environment. It would have been that I just was prioritizing other things. But now, in light of everything that is happening, in light of increased occurrences of natural disasters, heat events, flooding, I will tell you that my priorities have shifted a bit. So I'm grateful for this conversation, and I look forward to many, many more like it. And my prayer is that these conversations will turn into some effective policy that help us to be able to create a more sustainable environment.
Thank you so much.
For sure.